we go. Abraham, session 14. It's the last one. Well done, you've made it. We start from the beginning. Once upon a time, long ago. We're going to be looking at Genesis chapter 24. Abraham's coming to the end of his life, his fruitful life. And the whole point has been learning how we can be fruitful by looking at what God did through Abraham. So the same God works with the same material, because Abraham was just flesh and blood like you and me. Didn't have any superpowers. He just lived in this relationship with God, mostly in obedience with God, and allowed God to use him to make his life fruitful, to make him a blessing to the whole world. Coming to the end of his life, is this fruit going to end? How can we be fruitful beyond our years? I missed it on Friday night. Who's that? Monty Don. We were out for the day with Sarah, and so we missed. Yet to see. Don't tell me what happens. No spoilers, but we're yet to see Gardener's World. What we have missed is the jobs for the weekend. And we missed the weekend now pretty much, so there we go. I'll have to wait till next weekend. But one of the things that Monty Don is telling gardeners, and he's banging, I'm going to say he's banging on about it, because I know you like that expression, is that if you want fruit in the future, you've got to start planting seeds now. We're coming to the end of this harvest season, but he's already thinking about, is he going to have enough Brussels sprouts on Christmas Day? And, you've got to start planting things now, ready for the new season, and how you can have salad crops through the winter and in your garden there, or on your window box, or whatever you've got, and how you can be preparing. And you've got to start planting seed now if you want fruit in the future. Abraham wanted to be fruitful beyond his years, because God's plans and purposes for Abraham's life didn't end when he got to 127 or whatever it is when he passes away. His plans for Abraham go beyond that, and his plans for you go beyond your allotted time span, however long or short that is. Fruit comes in its season, but you've got to start planning and being prepared for that. So we're going to look at Genesis 24. Here we are, here it is, verse 1. Abraham was now a very old man. The Lord had made him rich, and he was successful in everything he did. One day, Abraham called in his most trusted servant and said to him, "Solemnly promise me in the name of the Lord, who rules heaven and earth, that you won't choose a wife for my son Isaac from the people here in the land of Canaan. Instead, go back to the land where I was born and find a wife for him from among my relatives." So Abraham's old, rich and successful. Is it time to sit back and relax, take it easy, enjoy his retirement, eat, drink and be merry? No, he's still thinking long term. He's still got to look after his son Isaac and his future generations. He's still caring about those who are going to come after him. He's got things to accomplish. If you've got the Bible open at Genesis 24, you'll see it's quite a long reading. I think there's about 70 odd verses. 67 verses. So I'm going to give you the option at this point. We can carry on with the reading, and you can listen to me read it on the screen, or you can watch a video to sum it up. Hands up if you want the Bible reading. Well done. Now, holy people. Hands up if you want the video. So dumbing it down. No, not dumbing it down. Here we go.
God promised Abraham that he would bless him, that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars, and that through Abraham's family, all the families of the world would be blessed. Abraham believed God's promises and trusted his word. Now it was time to find a godly wife for Isaac, and seeking her meant applying the same principles of faith. He called in his most trusted servant, saying, "Swear to me that you will find a wife for my son who knows God, not from the women here in Canaan who worship idols, but return to my hometown and find a maiden there." His loyal servant had only one concern. What if there is no woman willing to leave her hometown and travel so far away to this strange land? Abraham confidently recounted the promises that God made to him and responded to his servant, "The God of heaven, the one who will fulfill every promise he made, he will send an angel to go with you." The servant was encouraged by his master's words and swore to him that he would do exactly what he asked. The servant took 10 of his master's camels and set off on the long journey. When he finally arrived, he stopped at a well just outside the city, and as he waited, he prayed for a sign. "O Lord God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today, and show steadfast love to my master Abraham. I pray that while I am standing here by this spring of water, the maiden who is to be Isaac's wife will not only serve me water at my bidding, but will also offer water to my camels." Before he finished praying, Rebekah approached the well. She was very beautiful. The servant ran to the young lady and asked, "Please, may I have a drink of water from your jar?" She quickly gave the stranger a drink. "I will fetch water for your camels as well," she said kindly. The words struck a chord in the servant's heart. Could it be that this beautiful girl was the one for his master's son Isaac? The servant studied her while she went about the difficult task of watering 10 thirsty camels. He could see she was as kind as she was beautiful. The servant was now confident that Rebekah was the one for Isaac, and he adorned her with jewelry. When Rebekah's brother Laban saw the grand procession of camels near the spring, he ran to greet them. Laban invited the servant to stay in his father's home and to join the family for dinner. As they sat down to eat, the servant interrupted, "I cannot eat until I have done everything my master sent me to do." And he began to explain all that had taken place. After listening to the servant's amazing story, they all agreed that it was God who led him to Rebekah. The next morning, the servant said to Rebekah's family, "Let me go now and take Rebekah back to my master." But her uncle and mother begged, "Please, don't take her now. Let her stay at least 10 days. Then we will let her go." But the servant urged them that he must return home right away. The matter was settled when Rebekah agreed to leave. So the family blessed her and sent her away to begin her new life. Rebekah and the servant traveled nearly 500 miles to return to the home of Abraham. As they approached the settlement, Rebekah said to the servant, "Who is the man walking in the field toward us?" The servant replied, "He is my master." She quickly jumped down from the camel and prepared herself as the servant ran ahead to tell Isaac the wonderful news about how God had chosen a special bride for him. Isaac and Rebekah were finally introduced, and it was truly love at first sight. They met and married the very same day and had a long, happy life together. The promise that the whole world would be blessed through this special family would be fulfilled hundreds of years later, because out of Isaac and Rebekah's family would come Jesus, the Messiah.
Right, just while I skip through the reading, some questions for you. How far did Rebekah travel back to meet Isaac?
500 miles.
500 miles.
There's a song about that.
There's a song about that.
Yeah, there is a song I know, so we're singing it on the front row here. How many camels did the servant take?
10.
How much water can a camel drink in one go?
What? It didn't say that.
40 gallons. So that would be 400 gallons of water that Rebekah pulled out of the well. That would be 1,818.44 litres, which would weigh nearly 2 tons. She was a strong girl, wasn't she? She had a big bucket. No, she would have done that. Would have been the entire That would have been a tiring job, wouldn't it? That was quite a feat for him. When the servant, where are we up to? When the servant was met Rebecca, and God fulfilled that prayer, where did the servant put the ring? Through her nose. You have to read the Bible, you see, to get all those facts. I didn't tell you that in the video. Okay, so we put a ring in her nose to mark her as taken. Here we go. So, taken over here, let's move on because we're sort of quickly running out of time. What can we learn from this about living a fruitful life? How can we prepare for the future? How can we extend our shelf life beyond the time that we've got? First thing we see about Abraham is he invests in other people. Who are you investing in? Who do you pray over? Who are you nurturing? Who are you encouraging in the faith? Who is going to carry on when you can't? Who's missing today? Jen, the children. We haven't got any children in here today. How many of you know the names of the children that come every week, apart from today? How many of you have ever spoken to their parents? How many of you pray for those children? Abraham was investing in the future, investing in other people. You've got to know who you can trust. It says Abraham didn't call anyone in, he called in his most trusted servant. Somebody who'd proved himself over time to be trustworthy. Somebody who wasn't just going to get 10 camels and clear off. Thinking, that's living the dream now, I'm off. Got 10 camels, got some money, I'm away. He was somebody who, even though he wasn't in his master's sight, he was going to fulfill the mission he was given. Who can you trust? You've got to learn who you can trust and invest in those people. And Abraham himself had obviously had a positive impact on this trusted servant, because this trusted servant has a relationship with God. And he prays to the Lord, and he sees the Lord answering his prayers. The servant himself relies on the Lord to fulfill this mission. Do you have people around you that you can trust? People that you can turn to for support and help? Nurture those relationships. Investing in other people means helping other people to know the Lord. Abraham brought Isaac up to follow the Lord. In verse 62, it says that Isaac is in a place called Beer Lahal Roy. That's significant, isn't it? I can see you going, What that actually means is the God who sees me. We first came across that in Genesis 16, verse 14. The God who sees me. Isaac is in a place where he knows he's in the presence of God. Abraham brought him up in the faith. So again, who are you responsible for? Who are you nurturing? If you want to be fruitful beyond your years, you've got to partner with godly people. Abraham didn't want his son Isaac to marry one of the local pagans. It was important, Abraham knew, for his son to marry somebody else who would support him and encourage him and help him in his faith for one true God. He was quite insistent when the servant says, well, if I can't get anyone, should I take Isaac up there? And Abraham says, no. Isaac has got to stay in the promised land. If you can't persuade the right woman to come back, then you're set free from this obligation. but partner with godly people. We need relationships with people outside of our faith. That's important. If you don't know anyone who doesn't share your faith, how are you going to share your faith with them? If you don't know people outside the church or beyond Christian circles, it's great, it's important that we're friends here within the church. But who else do you meet that you can have a positive impact on? But those people that we allow closest to us need to be ones who share our faith and encourage us in that. So partner with godly people. Keep hold of the vision. Don't wander from the plan. Remember what you've been called to do. Remember the promises God has made. Abraham stuck with that vision. He didn't get to the end of his life and think, well, I've done the best I can. He was still thinking about the next generation. He was still keeping hold of what God had promised, which had not been yet fulfilled, but would be fulfilled because he trusted God, would be fulfilled through Isaac, would be fulfilled in that land of promise. Which is why he refused to consider any kind of compromise. What if I can't find the right woman in the right place? Is it okay if you marry somebody local? No. Well, can Isaac leave here and go and marry somebody? No. Isaac has got to stay here. The right woman has got to come. God will provide. Don't wander from the plan. That was that bit. Seek guidance for each step. Pray about major decisions. The servant prayed. He was trusting God, the God of his master Abraham. When he got to the right town, how was he going to spot the right woman? He prayed. He prayed for a sign, and God fulfilled that and led him straight away to the right person. Pray about major decisions and expect God to show you the way to go. Expect him to show you. And look ahead. God has already prepared the way. He knows the future and will bring circumstances and people together in mind-blowingly incredible ways to make things happen at the right time. That's attached to it.
Yeah.
That is all. God has prepared the way. Thanks, Bob. Turn that off.
Hot tap as well.
So look ahead, because God has prepared the way. Look ahead. Outlive your life. Have an impact on the future. You can do it. The work that God has begun with you, he will see through to completion. It doesn't have to end when you breathe your last. It can carry on. Leave a legacy in some way. I'm going to show you, you won't know who that person is. Two people on the front row are smiling. Her name was Liz Brown. She was part of the church that we were involved in North Wales. She was part of lots of churches in the town of Rhyl, because she went to everything. And when we first went to the church, she was already getting on in years. She was a great example to us all. She never married. When she was born, she was born just before the First World War. She was born out of wedlock. Somebody told her that she would never amount to anything. She never knew her father, but she knew her Heavenly Father. And her love for the Lord just shone from her in everything. As she got older and older, her old age came with all sorts of problems. You would never find her complaining. I remember visiting her in hospital with Ellen. And she started to complain and then slapped her wrist. She said, no. And she just switched it off. And she was just so positive about everything that the Lord was doing and how wonderful he is. She had no children, never married. She became, in her lifetime by the way, she became a head midwife for the area. She worked hard and she was well respected. She had a gift of hospitality. In a church meeting where they were talking about spiritual gifts, and somebody said to Liz, I think the Lord has said you've got the gift of hospitality. She was a rubbish cook. She was terrible at anything like that, but she had a house that she lived in by herself. And the number of missionaries and visiting speakers and students, language students, that stayed in her home was just incredible, because she opened up her home and offered the hospitality she could to those who needed it. When she passed away, she left a legacy. It was a hostel for homeless boys in Uganda, where they can receive a Christian education and care. The Liz Brown Hostel. I've seen it in Uganda. That photograph of Liz is on the wall. People who've never met Liz are benefiting from the legacy that she's left. What are we sowing for the future? You know, there's lots of adverts on the telly these days about pension advice, getting good pension advice. I don't know if you've seen those, but you need to make sure you get good pension advice, because you've got to have a good pension for the future. Know your pension. Good to prepare financially for the future. There's lots of advice around about making a will, and I think they're making a will week and things like that. You know, solicitors are pushing people to make a will. It's good to prepare for when you leave. There's lots of advice about living healthily into old age, having good diet and exercise, and looking after yourself and being in community and all those things. It's good to prepare for your old age, to live well into old age. There's lots of concern about the future of the planet. How long it's going to last, when it's all going to burn out, when are we going to be swamped in plastic? How can we modify our actions for the sake of future generations? It's good to care about the planet. All those things are important. What investments are you making for future spiritual fruit? What are you doing for the future of the church? Just want you to bow your head and think about these things. Just close your eyes. And try and sense what the Lord wants to say to you. You might think, well, I'm no good with children. You don't have to be a Sunday school teacher or a youth worker. You might think, I don't know any children. You don't need to be a parent or grandparent. Here as a church family, we have children who meet with us. Some of us have children and grandchildren. What are you doing for them? What prayer do you pray over their lives? Who has the Lord brought alongside you that you need to be mentoring and investing in? Investing costs. It takes time and effort. Relationships can hurt when people let us down. We can be disappointed. But if the Lord has placed somebody on your heart, pray into their lives. Seek ways to invest in them. You know, somebody probably invested in you in the past. It might be your grandparents or your parents, your partner, your friends. Somebody has prayed over your life. That's why you're in this place with the Lord. We've received. What will we pass on? How can we be fruitful for the future? Lord, show us the way. Bring to our hearts and minds those you want us to invest in. Show us ways that we can do that, so that you can be glorified and our lives can be fruitful, not just for this harvest, but for the harvest to come as well. Lord, be glorified in this, we pray, as you build your kingdom in your holy name.